Welcome to the Fantasy Sports Trade Association New York Conference right here in New York City. I've got with myself the Kings, Scott Engel, Mike Cardano. What could be better than talking fantasy sports in New York City? We have record crowds at the Fantasy Sports Trade Association event. Scott, over 420 people here to talk fantasy sports. Some of the greatest leaders in the industry, some of the news sites. Everybody's here in the same place.
Yeah, Tony, good to be with you guys. Good to be here again. I've been coming to these conferences since roughly 1998, and it's great to finally be in New York City in my backyard. The wonderful thing about it is you see a lot of older faces, people who've helped build the industry, Tony, that you're familiar with, but a lot of new companies turning out. And the fact that it's in New York City for the first time just says a lot about the fantasy industry, because it's been eternally said that New York is the media capital of the world. So as the song goes, you make it there, you make it anywhere. And here is the fantasy industry for the very first time since they've started doing the conferences since the mid to late 1990s. It's in New York City. It's very exciting to see.
We're busting at the seams here.
Yeah, it's absolutely amazing what's going on. There's
Part of that was lunch, but...
Yeah, there's a big buzz going on. Of course, tonight's the first Fantasy Sports Trade Association Fantasy Football Draft of the year, and the combatants are going to be going after. We have an A and a B league. Of our guy, Nando DeFino, is going to be representing us in the B league. Is Nando really a B league guy?
Yeah, he's not A material. Who's going to be the first pick? Is it going to be Adrian Peterson? I hear that's the rumor.
I think the sexy early pick that we're seeing go in a lot of early drafts, and what I've seen going in mocks, is Eddie Lacy. People a lot of times, they don't want to go with the proven commodity, even among the experts. It's boring to pick Adrian Spears. It's boring to pick Jamal Charles. Eddie Lacy in a powerful offense, young guy, sort of versatile. I've seen Lacy go anywhere from 1 to 7, but number 1 overall in a lot of drafts. And talk about it a lot already in the preseason, Tony, is there's no consensus really top 5 in fantasy football right now, so everything could be a surprise.
You know, it's amazing. We're live at the FSTA conference. Of course, the first fantasy football draft of the year is going to happen. Scott Engel will be broadcasting on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio with the fantasy guru, John Hansen. And, of course, our guy, Dr. Roto, will
Take
be joining
care.
Take care.
Who is that?
Mark Bloom, he goes by.
Oh.
Now, Mike, it's interesting.
Roto Visionary.
You could sit in for him, Mike. There you go. You got all this shtick down. All right.
Mike, so when you're out there and you're a listener, or if you're viewing this on the Fantasy Sports Network, what can you learn from a draft that's taking place on June 21st?
Yeah, well, it's very early, no doubt. We were speaking earlier about what to do about Le'Veon Bell because, we don't know. He hasn't even had his hearing yet, his appeal hearing. But, it pretty much sets the standard for how the experts are looking at things. You use it as a gauge. There'll be more information that comes out between now and when you have your drafts, and you have to take that into account. But with the absence of any other additional information, this is pretty much how the experts are seeing it. And listen, they've done all the homework for you, so this is kind of a roadmap that you can use as a guide.
And it's really like what it is more significant from the industry perspective, Tony. This draft officially signals in the industry the beginning of the fantasy football season. I think with later drafts, a lot of people more looking at the information, but people have hungered for fantasy football all off season and want to start planning early. This is the draft that they start tuning into.
Of course, we're live at the Fantasy Sports Trade Association Summer Conference in New York City. Got Scott Engel and, of course, Mike Cardano. Scott Engel, Fantasy Hall of Famer. So I'm going to ask you this question, being a Fantasy Hall of Famer. What is the importance of this draft? Is it for the expert to go out and win, or start the average draft positions for all the listeners out there and all the magazine readers so they have a guide to go by, or can it be both?
It can be both, but I think more like I said, it's sort of like a landmark event. It's almost like in football, let's compare it to the Hall of Fame game in August. When they play the Hall of Fame game, that the preseason is officially kicked off. So this marks it as the kickoff event for everybody in the industry and also everybody listening at home, watching online, etc. By July and August, we're going to have so many more drafts, but people hunger for fantasy football during the offseason. They're going to be tuned into SiriusXM, both live and on demand, on their apps, etc. They're going to be disseminating it online because as soon as the last season stops, people already want to do a mock draft for next year in February.
Tony, you know what this whole entire exercise is for? It's just to see where Odell Beckham Jr. goes. That's what this whole charade is for. They're going to see, is he going to be the second, third receiver picked? Is somebody going to be ridiculously aggressive and take him as the first receiver? That's what the whole charade is for.
His ADP right now, as we record this on myfantasyleague.com, number 1 overall.
Bingo, Bob's your uncle.
Yeah,
there you go.
It's crazy because I listened to Greg Ambrosius today, of course, from Stats Incorporated on SiriusXM Fantasy Sports Radio, and he talked about several drafts. He went number 1. He said, but lately he's been going around 4 or 5 in drafts. Scott, Odell Beckham Jr., where do you think he belongs?
I don't think he belongs top 5. I think it's overreaction, what I talked about, too. Everybody wants the next sexy thing, the next guy with upside. Look, he had a great 10-game run. But you can't just project that over a full season. The guy has not played a full season in the NFL yet. Everybody knows about Beckham. Defensive coordinators are going to know about him. He's going to get more pressure from the defensive coverage side. Hamstrings are already an issue. He's having problems with his teammates, the media. I think he's a spectacular receiver. And a lot of people tend to think in black and white. They're saying, okay, I'm saying Odell Beckham stinks. It's not. It's just like, I can't take him over a more proven commodity like a Des Bryant.
So in the receiver food chain, where is he for you?
I'd probably say he ranks about maybe 5th or 6th right now.
I take him 2 behind Antonio Brown.
2. You know what's amazing?
I couldn't take him over Des. He's not proven enough.
You know what's amazing to me? Of course, Tony Cicada, Scott Engel, Mike Cardano, live from the Fantasy Sports Trade Association event right here in New York City. Calvin Johnson, 1 year ago, was the undisputed number 1 wide receiver taken.
Who?
Yeah, what happened to Calvin Johnson, Mike?
He's getting older. He's getting the crap kicked out of him, and he hasn't been healthy. That's what's happened.
How old is Calvin Johnson right now?
We're looking at, I believe, a 29-year-old wide receiver.
That's not old for a wide receiver.
It is when you've gotten hit as many times as he has, and he's got the ball thrown to him as much as he has.
Steve Smith is like 29, is old for a wide receiver.
He's a small
and that's
target.
A smaller guy who got hit a lot. I don't think it's about age. I think it's more about health and the erratic play of Matthew Stafford. We also had a change in coaching staff there, and they've gone more conservative offense there in Detroit. Yeah, they drafted Amir Abdullah, who could be a real sleeper. Joik Bell is a big bowling ball, but he's got no breakaway ability. Amir Abdullah has more spark. He can contribute in the passing game. I would not be surprised if Amir Abdullah actually becomes the number 1 running back for the Detroit Lions.
Last year, for the first time in his career, he really had another receiver on his team emerge as a guy that you can throw to.
Yeah.
So there was somebody else as kind of a go-to guy, so he wasn't the only option there.
You know, the guy that's most interesting, and this is going to take it way off topic, but we're staying with the Detroit Lions right here live from New York City. Eric Ebron is a guy that came in with a big fanfare, not much of a blocking tight end, but a guy that could catch the ball on the route. We didn't see him catch many balls. Is this a guy that you're looking at here in his sleeper tight end list, Scotty? He's definitely got the talent, another year ahead. Rookie tight ends, they rarely make an impact. In his second year, he talked about how overwhelmed he was with the playbook. You know, he's towards the back end of my 15 or 20 tight ends. I think there are other younger guys that can step forward. I think Geno Smith might lean more on Jason Morrow this year, where he wasn't a factor last year. I think there's a lot better picks out there, but it wouldn't surprise me if he made more of an impact. Tight end, really, after you get past the elite, there's a major drop-off. If you really want to go early, you go for a safe guy like Greg Olsen, but there's so many sleeper types like Austin Seferian-Jenkins as well. We're live from the Fantasy Sports Trade Association in New York City. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'm going to ask Mike Cardano who his favorite fantasy sports celebrity is. Who is the one fantasy sports guy that Mike would want an autograph from, and a whole lot more. Stay tuned for more from the Fantasy Sports Network.